Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit. Today we are joined by Hazel Solis Rojas, who is an immigration and employment law attorney and the founder and managing shareholder of Solis Rojas Law. Hazel, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Can we start off? Can you just tell us and our listeners a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Solis Rojas Law?
Sure, definitely. So I'm Hazel Solis Rojas. I am the attorney here at the law office of Hazel Solis Rojas, PA, in Miami, Florida, and we help individuals and businesses in employment and immigration matters.
And so when clients come to Solis Rojas Law, what are some of the kind of problems that they're experiencing that you're helping them resolve and helping them navigate?
Sure. So on the employment side, we help employees and employers, depending on the size. We try to avoid conflict. And so we help the individuals, the employees, in any issues relating to their actual employment or former employment. A lot of our clients are individuals who worked for somebody, whether it be small, medium, or large entity, as an employee, and for some reason either they weren't compensated properly, or they were wrongfully terminated, or there was some issue with their employment terms and conditions. And so they come to us seeking guidance, help. If they're still employed, they're seeking some guidance as to how to make the next move, how to approach the employer, how to negotiate and advocate for themselves. If they've been terminated, they're seeking some kind of reparation or some advocacy, some fight, right, into what they believe has been wrongfully taken from them. If we are speaking to an employer, typically it's a small employer who is either starting out or has a small team, and they just don't know what the employment laws are. They go and they hire somebody to help them with payroll, but payroll is just one part of the big picture. There are many employment laws locally, at the state level and federal, that apply to employers depending on their size. So that's on the employment side. And on the immigration side, it actually came to me in two different ways. One of them, me being an immigrant myself, I had many people in my circle asking immigration questions. But then when I started practicing in employment law, a lot of these individuals and businesses came across immigration issues related to employment. Employment and immigration law intertwine a lot. And so that's how that started. And so in immigration, we help individuals seeking to live, work, succeed, and prosper in the U.S., whether it be through a family relationship, an employment opportunity, and sometimes even an entrepreneurial decision. And so it varies, and I enjoy helping either one, whether it be the employee, the employer, or the individual or a business who's trying to grow.
Wow.
Growth is the key word, growth.
Sounds like you wear a lot of hats. And I'm curious, we'll unpack all this as we go. I'm curious, though, you mentioned that you represent both employer and employees. And how has representing both employers and employees given you sort of a real insight into every aspect and issue of these sort of disputes?
Yes, so that's actually the way that things just organically went from me being just a plaintiff's employment attorney to being an attorney who counsels management or the owners of a business. Initially, when I started practicing employment law, I was just representing the employee. And so after, I don't know how many hundreds of employees, um, at one point I had a defendant who represented themselves come to me and ask me for legal assistance and said, hey, I really appreciated the way you spoke to me and the way we were able to get this resolved. I understand I have things I need to fix. Would you be willing to help me? And so the need came about, and I try to help these small businesses because the pattern sort of starts there. It's not something that happens. Nobody starts a business with 40 employees and then create the system. It typically starts with 1 or 2 employees, and then they grow, but it's harder to fix that pattern afterwards.
And I'm curious, moving over to the immigration side of it, you being a first generation immigrant yourself and going through that process, what sort of unique insights has that given you when it comes to helping immigrant communities and people in need navigate these complex legal matters?
Yeah, so on both sides, I think on the employment and on the immigration side, I've been that prospective client of mine.
Right.
I've been an employee. I am a business owner. I've been an immigrant. I am an immigrant. I know what it's like to have to jump hurdles and go through processes and have that stress and uncertainty of things. I have very good idea as to what it feels like to be in my client's shoes. And so, one of the parts of employment law is discrimination claims, right? We litigate and negotiate and handle discrimination claims. And the various protected characteristics, I think you could probably check off each one on me. I'm a female, I'm Hispanic, there's so many different things. And so I understand it, I get it. And so that helps me in advocating and also educating my clients.
And, I don't want to go down the, politics rabbit hole too much here, but obviously immigration law is such a hot button issue right now. Have you seen any recent changes in that space since it's, such a hot button issue at the current moment?
Oh, there are changes almost every other day.
Really? Can you outline what some of those have been?
A lot of the paths or viable options for individuals wanting to live in the US and do business in the US is very much affected by our political environment. And so when you ban different countries from being able to do certain things, it's going to impact, these individuals. Right. And so, if certain people had a certain plan, or we as attorneys have a certain strategy that, then changes in the law or a regulation shifts, we have to adjust. We have to think it over again. We have to, sometimes start from scratch. And so it's definitely something that impacts people in many ways. And so, these are tough times for sure.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk about you a little bit. Your legal career has spanned real estate, business law, immigration, labor and employment law. How have all of those different areas that you've practiced in and focused on given you sort of a total understanding? You seem so uniquely positioned in helping your clients with all of this knowledge and sort of a 360 view. How did your career unfold in such a way, and what unique insights has that given you?
Yeah, so trust me, I did not plan it this way. So, starting with, I can tell you, I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be a lawyer. It was something that I was, attracted to the idea
Mm,
of helping individuals solve problems. I am the oldest child in my family. And so
mm,
it's like you automatically get the problem solver hat, and
right.
so that was just in me. And in teaching others, again, I'm the oldest child. And so I had siblings that at whatever I was learning, I was teaching them or telling them about it or trying to guide them. And so I wanted to be a lawyer from the very beginning. When I was in college, I decided I wanted to be exposed to what day to day life was like at a law firm. I didn't
Mm,
want to go to college and think that I was gonna love it. I knew I wanted to be it, but I had never been immersed in it. And
right.
so I said, okay, let's go try this out. And so I applied for a legal assistant position. It was a small labor and employment firm, and I I loved it
Mm,
from that point on. And so when I went on to law school, I decided, let's see what options there are, right? I didn't want to limit myself to anything. And so you are exposed to different workshops and just different opportunities. And when I graduated, it was 2008. So there was a huge real estate disaster happening.
right.
But I had already started clerking at a transactional law firm because after being exposed to litigation, I thought, you know what? Maybe I don't want to litigate. Maybe I want to be a transactional attorney. And so I wanted to know what that's like. So I went and I clerked for a small law firm, also doing business, real estate, all these things you mentioned. That's where I started. That's where I learned. And so the market crashed, things started to shift. And so I was thrown into the courtroom because that's just how, the market was. Those transactional real estate deals became foreclosures, became landlord tenant evictions, became litigation. And so having the transactional background helped me understand a lot of what was happening in litigation. And so, I mean, I had no choice. I was an associate at the firm. And so it was like, go figure it out, right? And so I then decided after a couple of years, well, if I'm going to litigate, then I want to go back into litigating employment law, which is
Mm,
what I had originally started doing. And so that's where I went back to litigating employment. And immigration came in as a pro bono thing that I used to do because I always had a place in my heart for immigration. And so whenever there was an opportunity for pro bono, I would volunteer and help out and put my time there. And so that's how it all
wow.
came together.
Wow. I was going to say you've been, worn a lot of hats in your career, jumped around through different areas quite a bit. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I can definitely tell you what I like and what I don't like at this point, though.
Oh, please do. Now,
I no longer practice in real estate. It's something that I think it was a phase in
mm,
my life. I do like the fact that I know and understand how it works because, if there's ever the opportunity to invest in property or do anything with real estate or businesses, um, it's not the first time that I'm going to be going into it or,
right.
seeing it for the first time. So I understand. And so it's definitely helped me as a business owner,
Yeah.
because as a business owner, you have to know what goes into leasing commercial property. And when you're just right out of law school, or even if you've been an attorney practicing for some time, but you've always been an employee, you're not exposed to these, things. You don't have to make these decisions. And
Right.
so having represented clients who were already, in their businesses, having to make these decisions and come up with strategy definitely helps when you're the one in their, seat.
Right. And when clients come to Solis Rojas Law, like with these employment and labor disputes, is it sort of a one size fits all approach that you're giving them, or is everything you're doing highly custom tailored to the individual client and the needs of their particular case?
Oh, it's very custom.
Is it?
Yes, there is no template in the practice of employment law. I would say when it comes to, we in discrimination claims specifically, we have to go through the administrative process. So there's an actual form that we have to use, but that's about it. Everything else, you really have to understand what the specific claims are. When you're representing an employer, you have to understand the actual employer, what makes the business, who are these people, what are their services, who, what are their employees doing? And then of course, the laws are, employment laws, they are what they are and they apply to both sides. But when it comes to what is the strategy and what is it that we're going to do to help this either employee or employer, really depends on where are we starting from. What's the starting point? I can't apply the same strategy to a small business that has 2 employees versus a business that's got 40.
Right.
You don't have the same problems.
Right.
And same thing happens with an employee. I can't give legal advice to an employee who is a minimum wage earner, working 50, 60 hours a week in comparison to maybe a pharmacist who's been at a specific place. It's been her career or his career for 20, 25 years, and now they want to fire them because they're not adequate anymore. They're no longer a fit, quote unquote. So it's definitely depends on where that starting point is.
And I'd like to just, carry that kind of same question over into the immigration side. Is everything on the immigration side all highly custom tailored as well?
A lot of it is. You got to decide where you're going with it. What's the person's goal? Many individuals want to, come over to the U.S. for a specific reason, especially when some students, for example, some of them, they just want to come over here and study whatever it is they want to do and move on, either because they want to start a business of their own or because they want to, create something, whatever it is. It's not the same strategy or discussion you're having with somebody who, it's having a very different.
Right.
So yes, the client's goals and I would say preference as well is what determines how we're going to proceed and what the strategy is going to be.
Are there, when it comes to, I guess, employment, are there any sort of myths that employers hold about employment and fairness and sort of compensation that are holding them back when it comes to, really treating employees fairly? Any myths that they hold that when they come and see you, you're like, actually, that's not the rule. That's not the way it is.
Yes, there are many. There's a whole list of them. and mostly I would say comes up a lot on the wage and hour side. And so because usually you start off with a team and all it takes is, one employee that you're misclassifying or not accounting for their time properly, and you're liable. And so the wage and hour laws are, I say, one of the most important areas that an employer needs to focus on and have discussions about in complying with and implementing with their lawyer, their accountant, HR consultant, professional. I would say ideally an employment lawyer, an accountant, and then have an HR consultant, help you with the day-to-day. But I would say one of the biggest issues is the classification of employees. A lot of employers believe that if the individual and the business signed an independent contractor agreement, that they're covered, that that person can work for the business and go about doing whatever the work is. Um, but if in reality, that individual under the law really is supposed to be classified as an employee because the employer controls everything that they do, because they only work for that employer, because they use their equipment, their supplies, their database, everything. And you would most likely always know, just, you know, you I think many people don't really need to be trained in this. They would know, yes, you're their employee. It's that
Right.
obvious.
Right.
But yet some employers and workers think, hey, we signed an independent contractor agreement, I'm an independent contractor, when
Right.
the reality is not. And so it starts there. And then from that, it branches out into all other sorts of issues. Like, well, if you're an independent contractor, I don't have to pay you overtime. If you're an independent contractor, I don't have to comply with the anti-discrimination statutes. If you're an independent contractor, I don't have to cover you under, work comp laws. Like, these are things that, because if it starts off wrong, it'll create a whole path of bad decisions. And
Right.
eventually something will happen, and the worker who's really an employee will look for a lawyer. And that's how the employer then realizes, oops, that was a really bad mistake.
Right.
And then we'll have to clean it up.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd love to take that same question over to the immigration side. Are there any myths that you think the general public or people hold about immigration law and the immigration process that are really kind of holding people back, or that you'd like to dispel?
Yeah, I think many individuals depending in different countries, they don't realize that there are so many other visas, so many other
Mm.
options that they could apply for, that they can seek. They think that the only way to make it into the U.S. is because you're married to, a U.S. citizen, or because, somebody went and offered you a position in their, big multinational company or something. But that's not really the case. There are so many different options. And it depending on, again, your goals, right? Some people just want to come here and expand on an existing business they might have in their native country. And that's okay. They don't necessarily want to live here forever. They just want to be able to expand. Other people, I have a client who recently had his visa approved for him, his wife, and two kids, their high school age. They wanted to come to the US because they wanted their children to finish up school here in the US and go to college here in the US without having to deal with the whole student visa problems that arise. And then also the father wanted to expand his business. He's a plastic surgeon. And as a plastic surgeon, he had so much under his belt with regards to credibility, in the industry. He was doing seminars already worldwide where he was being invited to teach about certain surgical procedures and innovation in doing plastic surgery. And so, he was an excellent candidate, and the United States administration just really didn't hesitate. That went really quick. And those are the kinds of things where as an attorney, you in some ways live vicariously through them, because you see them, making their dream come true, which is, hey, I want to be the best surgeon, but I also want to be able to move my family, give them options, and grow. And
Right.
I enjoy seeing that from, this side.
Yeah. Well, you shared with us a story about somebody that you saw a really positive outcome and transformation in as a result of your help and guidance on the immigration side. Is there a story when you think back on all the people that you've been able to help through the employment law and labor dispute side? Is there anybody that you saw a really positive transformation and outcome for as a result of your help and guidance in that area?
Yeah. I've had many of them.
Is there one that
um,
really stands out when you think back?
um, wow. I mean, I think the ones that initially in my career, I I felt so proud of having been involved in, and just being able to contribute to, the bigger picture. We represented construction workers
Mm,
who had been involved, or working in a big project, and these individuals were misclassified. They were not being paid properly. They were not being paid for the overtime. They were not being paid sometimes, the minimum wage. And so these individuals, they didn't even speak English, right? Some of them didn't even have a way to communicate to their employer properly what it was that they didn't agree with or wanted fixed. And that became a collective action. And we litigated that in federal court. And it stood out for me because it wasn't just a one individual that we were going to impact in whatever the outcome was. It was a group of them and any other individual that could fit within that class
mm,
or that collective action. And so I like that effect that those kind of claims have, because they expand, right, and cover like a blanket over more workers. And so that was great. That was a great experience for me, and that one will always stand out. And then on the employer side, I mean, just seeing some of my clients grow their teams so much and in such a way that they feel comfortable in doing so because they understand they're following the rules, and in
yeah.
doing so they're protecting their business and themselves, because some claims can't be against the individual owners. And so you may have the business, but you can't just, say, hey, because this is the business that's your employer, I have nothing to do with it. So some of them are like, well, if it goes bankrupt, it goes bankrupt. Well, not really. You personally can go bankrupt too. And so seeing those employers grow with confidence and reassurance and being, their support in doing so, I mean, that's also great.
Yeah. That's amazing. And Hazel, this has been just a fabulous conversation. Very, very insightful. If anybody out there listening could use your help and guidance, could use the help of the Solis Rojas law firm, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I can be found at www.solisrojaslaw.com. And our office number is 305-558-8402. And on social media, we're at Solis Rojas Law.
Hazel, thank you so much for joining us today. This was absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
And thank you everyone for listening. This has been Partnerships for Profit presented by LeDuc Entertainment. Hazel, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.